Hello and welcome to Cretaceous Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Mattel Jurassic World Legacy Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex pack. This is a brand new set for 2019 in the Legacy Collection line, exclusively available in the US at Target. And as you can see, it comes with the buck T-Rex as well as the baby T-Rex, both as seen in the Lost World Jurassic Park. So I picked this set up at my local Target. I did the old DPCI trick in which you give an employee the Target specific DPCI number, and he was nice enough to go to the back and pull it out for me. These are just starting to hit some stores. Some stores have begun putting them out. Others are waiting till January 6th, which at least in some locations is the reset date for the toy department. So if you go and you don't find it, just keep checking. They should be out within the coming weeks. Retail on this is $29.99. And this is a set I've been particularly excited to see firsthand because obviously it has a T-Rex and it's the first T-Rex in the line that is not Rexy. But it is something that is still from the classic Jurassic Park trilogy, which for me is something to be especially excited about. So there is some newness here, but it's not entirely new. We'll get into all of that, but first let's take a look at this packaging. I gotta say, it looks absolutely gorgeous. This time around for 2019, it looks like they are getting rid of the gate that we had on the Legacy Collection. If you recall, there was the iconic Jurassic Park gate. That's gone. Instead, you have the Jurassic Park logo over there with the T-Rex skeleton, and that is what we're seeing on all the Dino Rivals packaging too. And I actually think this may look a little bit better, at least in my eye. It just looks a little bit more cohesive than the previous iteration of the Legacy Collection packaging. You still get your logo right there with the orange background. You still get your Jurassic World era T-Rex, which you can tell from all the scratches on her. It says you get chomping action, and it shows you on the box how you can test both of those action features so that you can try it before you buy it. On the side, it simply says Jurassic World Legacy Collection. You get more of that blue look with the green foliage. And at the back, you get a very nice look at both of the toys in action. And again, arrows pointing toward chomping action. As you can see down here, there's actually some images for the Legacy Collection story packs. These are supposed to be new packs. I don't know whether or not they're going to be released or where they may be released at. Obviously, they would be released through Target, but I'm not sure whether or not that's going to happen. Hopefully it does. But you have a set here with Muldoon and a raptor, and then Grant in a raptor. And this set looks to be based a little bit more on Jurassic Park 3, even though Alan's attire isn't necessarily accurate to Jurassic Park 3. Question mark. And here at the bottom, it says one-time assembly and all the usual information there. If you want the UPC, there it is right there. I also will put the DPCI number in the description. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and spend a little bit of time, get this unboxed. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at the Tyrannosaurus Rex pack. All right, so here are the contents out of the packaging. And as you can see, we do have a tailless T-Rex, which we can't have that because that's just not proper. So,
very good, push. Push.
There we go. So much better there. All right, so let's go ahead and focus first on that little bitty baby T-Rex over there. See ya. All right, so this right here is a 100% repaint of the original release. Now, although it may look identical to the original release on first glance, it's actually different. So we go ahead and bring in the original guy right here. Muzzle off. You will see that the colors are actually a little bit different. Whereas the new one is more of a lime green coloration. The original one is more of this avocado sort of green with jungle green patterns on its back, whereas the new one has more of an army green coloration on its patterns. I can't really say that one is more movie accurate than the other because in my eyes, neither of them are very movie accurate at all. But of course, it is cool to see the differences here. They are a little bit different. You'll also notice that the patterns that it has on its right thigh, like let's say that's the letter Y and let's say that's an oval with a little circle on it, are identical to the patterns on its left thigh. There's your letter Y and then there's your oval with the circle in it right there. So very interesting that they took that approach. So I never really cared for the original release. I didn't personally think it was that great. The sculpt in and of itself is decent, but it is very soft. There's not a whole lot of texturing going on. It is a little bit cartoony looking, and that certainly has not changed this time around. Same exact sculpt. There's nothing different here other than the paint and the fact that you do not get the muzzle this time around. Luckily, since it is the exact same sculpt, you can still use the muzzle from the original release on it, if you wanted to do that. The mouth color from the inside is also a little bit different and maybe a little less glossy on the new release. And there's also a little bit, let's call it eyeshadow, around the eye on the new one compared to the original one, which has a lot more eyeshadow on it. The eye colors actually look to be pretty similar. For articulation, you do have ball hinging at both of the shoulders, so really good movement out of those. No complaints there. You can swivel both of the hips forward and back, and they are a little bit stiff, so you do need to use a little bit of force to get them to swivel, and they do go outwards a little bit, which is a nice touch as well. The action feature is exactly the same as it was before, so you're going to tap down on the tail, and when you do that, the jaw chomps open and close. Nothing remarkable, but hey, it is fun as an added action feature. If you're doing the Jurassic Facts app, there's the code right there. All right, now let's move along to the male T-Rex. Buck only. How and why are my business. Gotta love every moment in the Lost World with Roland Timbo in it. He's just an awesome character. So the male here is, as you might have guessed, a 100% repaint of the Extreme Chompin' T-Rex that was released in the Legacy Collection in 2018. When images initially surfaced of this one, I wasn't all that enthused about it because the colors didn't quite look movie accurate in my eye. And now that I have it in person, that's still kind of the case. I might like it a little bit better, but there's still some pretty big issues here that we will get into. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't look terrible, but I think that the biggest issue here is that the patterns on the T-Rex's body just don't really work for me. The patterns themselves here look a little bit sporadic. I kind of feel like they should have taken what they did with the original release for the Extreme Chompin' T-Rex, use that same exact pattern, just switch the colors on it. Because as it is, it's obviously very different from the original Legacy T-Rex, but it's not quite where it needs to be. And I certainly get that there are budgetary reasons for things having to be a little bit different here and there, but the shade of the actual color I don't think should really influence the cost of producing the item, and perhaps Mattel simply wanted to give us something a little more vivid that was a little more visually appealing to kids, which is perfectly fine. But I think they still could have accomplished that while being a little more faithful to the screen-accurate Buck T-Rex. So as with the Extreme Chompin' T-Rex, you still get very nice sculpted detail on the head. You can see there's a lot of texturing going on here, a lot of pebbling, all these striations and patterns that are sculpted into the body. It looks great. It's a very nice sculpt, and that has been evidenced by all the repaints people have done on these Extreme Chompin' T-Rexes or any of the other T-Rexes really in the Mattel lines. You will see that the lower jaw is very obvious because it is this very light yellow color, and that was definitely the case before. The jaw was a little bit too light in color, but I feel like it's maybe even a little more apparent here. It could just be me. But you do see that you have a little bit of that pattern going in here. It's basically like a dark gray color. The eyes look pretty similar to what they were before, basically yellow with a black pupil. And underneath you can see that the color underneath the body looks a little bit better compared to what we get on the jaw. You can see it's a little bit more green in its tone. There's a slightly more green tone to it than what you have with the lower jaw. Not a huge difference, but it is noticeable. And again, sculpting on this has always been phenomenal in my view. I absolutely love the proportions. I think that it looks fantastic. Unfortunately, the patterns didn't carry all the way down the tail, which again was the case with the Legacy T-Rex before, so I'm not really surprised at that. It's mostly the colors just being a little bit off and the patterns being a little bit strange here that are throwing it off a little bit for me. So if we look up here at the top, no patterns right here on the top of the head, which is fine, but you do have a little bit of a plastic thing going on there. And another thing I noticed here, and let me show you the claws real quick. They didn't paint them, which is fine. I think they're a little bit smoother in terms of their texturing than the arms, so they do pop a little bit, but not so much. But what I wanted to show you is that the feet, which do have painted claws, look to be the same color as before. Actually, on the right foot, there seems to be some glue or something right there that you can kind of see there. I don't know what that is. I might try and heat that up with the hairdryer and see if I can get it off. It seems like glue or something that's there. No patterning. Patterning, is that a word? No patterns going on here on the legs on either side. For articulation, it is going to be the same as we had before, so you do get those ball hinges here. They aren't complete ball hinges because you can't get the full range of movement out of them. They are limited to an extent, and the same on this side, so that is nice. You can swivel the legs forward and back. same as before, and you can rotate both of the ankles, which is nice. You also have articulation here at the neck, here at this point, and then at the front point as well. So you do get a pretty good range of movement with your extreme chomping T-Rex, or your bull T-Rex in this case. Tail is also on a hinge, so you can spin it, you can rotate it a little bit. You kind of got to twist it pretty hard until you hear the popping sound in order for it to move. Now, in terms of the action feature, it's going to be exactly the same as it was before. So we'll go ahead and hit that right here. So you can see this is the tongue down version that the revised extreme chomping T-Rex was, so nothing different there. Inside of the mouth is a pretty nice mouth sort of color. Not a whole lot going on. It looks pretty similar to how it looked before. I also noticed that like the plastic has like a little separation right there. Like if I twist the ankle, you can kind of see that that separation becomes a little more apparent, like it kind of opens up a little bit. That is kind of sort of even there on the left, whereas with the original, I mean, you don't have those separations at all. So it might just be a QC issue that needs to be looked into. If you're doing the Jurassic Facts app, there is the code right there. All right, so here are the two Rexes side by side. Obviously, they look very different. There's no mistaking these two in your collection. And for all my griping that the paint isn't quite as accurate as it should have been, well, when you look at Rexy, the same was obviously true there. Obviously, both could have been a little bit more film accurate. Obviously, both of them have light colored jaws. I'm a huge fan of the sculpts on both of them, but in terms of paint, they're not quite film accurate to any of the Jurassic films. I think by and large, I prefer the original release. It just has a more classic look about it. It's a little bit more natural looking. And I really like the shading that they added to the front of the snout. You don't really have that on the new release. You do have the patterns, but it gives it a little bit more of a toy sort of look to it than the original does with the shading. But if you're a fan of The Lost World and you like having different looking characters in your collection, then you're probably going to want to have both of these to go with each other on the shelf. It's also quite notable how the paint schemes on the adult and on the baby are very different. Obviously, the baby is supposed to be a younger version of the adult, so I kind of wonder why they didn't give it the same coloration as they did on the buck T-Rex. This nicer green color, I think, on the baby would have looked a little bit better, as well as those darker colors for the patterns. Even if they're not 100% film accurate, I think would have looked aesthetically a little bit better when looking at them side by side. In fact, I think if we bring in the original, I feel like this even looks a little bit better to me. It just looks a little bit closer. Still not 100%, but they just look a little bit more similar to each other. What is cool though is that now you have the daddy, you have the mommy, and you have the baby. And yes, I know that Rexy isn't really the mommy, but the great thing about the Legacy Extreme Chomping T-Rex is that she doesn't yet have the battle scars on her, so she can also serve as the regular female T-Rex from the Lost World. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the Mattel Jurassic World Legacy Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex set. Overall, you guys, I am pretty content with the set. I think that as far as pricing goes, $29.99, it is correct. The original Extreme Chomping T-Rex was $19.99, and the baby T-Rex was at the $9.99 price point. So it's a fair price. I think for what you're getting, it is quite nice. I am glad that Mattel is offering us a different T-Rex this time around, because obviously there were other T-Rexes in the Jurassic Park franchise aside from Rexy, and the bull is especially important, and it's really nice to finally have it. Even though I personally have some issues with the coloration and the patterns, the way that they were applied, I think that it mostly hits the mark. Even though I'm harping on it a little bit, I am pretty happy with it. I think my biggest issue is the fact that the baby T-Rex doesn't match the colors of the adult. You also don't get the muzzle this time around, which not a big deal. I think they should have included the cast for the leg though, because that was a pretty big plot point in The Lost World as well, and this would have been the perfect opportunity to include the leg cast. But again, for the most part, the set works, even though they could have done a bit more with it. I think most collectors are going to be pretty pleased with what Mattel has done with the bull T-Rex and the baby T-Rex. Alright my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Will you be picking up this set? What is your favorite thing about this set? What do you think about the colors? Sound off down below. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the latest news and updates on the Jurassic World Dino Rivals line, as well as news for the channel and the podcast. As always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Cretaceous Cantina. Until next time, bye-bye.